The fact that we went with no wearable, I think that was something that cost us early because it's a harder problem to solve, in my opinion, at least. But no wearables means no ceiling. I mean, anyone with a phone can use this. And I think that's what makes this so impactful. And that compounds with what you said. I mean, we have more than 82 million installs right now and more than 4 billion nights of data tracked. And we have done that more or less organically. So every day, just to put some numbers out there, Jeremy, because I know your audience like numbers, every day we analyze 11 million hours of sleep. 11 million hours. That's like, it's over 1,000 years of human sleep every day. And we process, 300,000 sleep hours an hour. So for years we have done this, and that's what we trained it on. So I think what's clicked to me is, to go back to the question, it's like when we went to breathing, it also opened up a whole new area of other things.
Lamp by your bed dims slowly. The speaker on your nightstand plays white noise. Your watch counts your steps, and they are smart only in the marketing brochure because none of them give us a complete picture of how we might integrate the insights into the activities of our lives. Erik Jivmark thinks that's about to end. Erik is the CEO of Sleep Cycle, the world's leading sleep tracking platform. Over 2 billion nights analyzed across more than 150 countries. He's arrived at sleep through digital transformation at Accenture, the global digital helm at Volvo Cars, and the CEO chair at Volvo Car Mobility. Now he's pointing every one of those instincts at the most underutilized 8 hours of our human biology, that is, the ones we spend asleep. Today, Erik shows us where ambient health might be going next. When your bedroom becomes a respiratory clinic, when your speaker hears the cough before you do, and when sleep stops being passive, the night is listening to inform the day. Erik, first of all, welcome to the DNA of Things, my friend. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to dive into all things sleep. That is where we humans seem to spend 1/3 of our lives. But maybe if you could tell me about the portion of your life that led you into this phenomenal leadership position that you find yourself in today.
I mean, it could have been poor sleep, but it wasn't actually. So that's good. No, I mean, I've been my entire life fascinated about things that can actually make a real impact in people's life. So that's always where I've been, drawn my attention to. And my previous job before this, I was building a car sharing service and giving access to cars for Volvo Car Group. So I was the CEO of a subsidiary of Volvo Car Group, and we grew that into the largest operation here in the Nordics, so in the north of Europe. And then I went on to this. And before that, I mean, I had the opportunity to live in the US. I was working for Volvo Cars at that time and leading the digital practice, the platform, scaling that across the Latin American market and the US market. And I actually started back in I think it was 2007. I mean, now I just dated myself, but I mean, here we are, Jeremy. We need to be honest with each other. So I started back in 2007 at a company called Accenture, so management consulting, and I was actually starting in Denmark, but they realized that my Danish was not good enough, so they kept sending me to big cities around Europe. So I spent 4 years there, and my interest has always been digital products and services, how that could improve people's life and thereby drive a meaningful business.
It's funny. I hear you say 2007. And, since we're being honest, I only heard of a Sleep Cycle 2 months ago.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. How did I miss that? Because you guys have been in the App Store since there was an App Store.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, we started in 2009. Just as you said, it's the same year as the App Store opened, if I don't mistake myself. And I think we made one decision that set everything else in motion. And that was that we would only rely on the phone, the wearable that people already had, that people already owned. So the technology, of course, has changed a lot since, and I'm happy to talk about that. But I think one principle didn't, and that is that it takes an app to wake you up at the right moment. That's what we have patents for. That's real. And that's where it started. But underneath that, of course, listening to how the world sleeps changed kind of a lot of things. And I joined as CEO in 2023, and I did the analysis just like any new CEO does. And I realized that the most valuable asset in the company was sitting in plain sight, basically. So that's where my journey in this company started.
There. I wanted to plug one more thing or pull one more thing on origin story because I met with some of your wonderful team this morning, and one of the boardrooms was like, it was like Ninja something. What was it? Was one of
Yeah,
the
it's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
last ninja. Yeah,
yeah, and they shared with me that like the founder actually he was a gamer,
yeah.
and
So they did a lot of different things. Yeah.
yeah,
So they
yeah.
were also doing some games, and I think they had success with one game, a racing game that they were actually quite successful with. So yeah, they had a lot of things going on. And his story, the founder's story, was that he actually. So I opened this conversation with saying I didn't have a sleep problem, so that's not what brought me here. Well, this invention was brought out of his challenges with sleep, and he started to read a lot about how what can I do to improve sleep, and how can I sort of measure sleep. I mean, he's an engineer, so he wanted to measure things. And then he found this paper talking about the correlation between movement and sleep stages, and how you sleep. And that's when he got the iPhone, and he realized, well, the accelerometer in the iPhone, if I chuck that under the mattress, or if I strap it onto the bed and I start to play around with those algorithms, maybe I can find a correlation between how I sleep and basically how much I move. And that was the start of the company.
Now you correct me if I'm wrong here, because where my head went when I learned about this is, he's a gamer. He's struggling with sleep because I'm not a gamer, but I remember when I played video games as a kid and I was relentless. I couldn't put it down, right? And the interesting thing is like I guess what I'm driving at is the environmental cues today they're so different. You know what I mean? Or the
Yeah.
environmental exposure. We're not going outside. We're not working in the fields. Like some of our jobs are gamers. Actually, I remember going to the what was it? The inaugural Human Performance Summit in San
Hmm.
Francisco being put on by Logitech, which was geared towards gamers and the human performance aspect of their gaming, obviously sleep of which being critical and foundational to so many things, not least of all, their cognitive capability
Mm.
and therefore performance as the games. And so it's not trivial. And then actually, even when I started to use the app myself, because I'm guilty of it. Like, look, here we are in front of screens. That's my light. I'm not
Yeah.
outside, getting my daily dose of sunshine. Although I did get some, I do make a point to insert those, kind of sleep regulators. But some of the things that really, struck me with the app was, and I know a lot of apps have this, and I know this isn't the main features among the main features that we'll talk about today, but even just the meditation aspect and the wind
Hmm.
down is like I could never finish one of them because I would just be out,
Mm. Yeah.
within like 5 or 10 minutes of starting it. And then as I started to look at the data, I thought was really cool was, as you said, something you said was listening to how the world sleeps. And then I started playing with the app, and I actually had like an audible output of like, oh, this is how I was sleeping. And of course, they're like down the hall, my daughter's sleeping, and
Mm.
my wife's with her, and I can hear them up, and I can hear them coughing. And then that brought me to your coughing map, and I was like, oh wow, that's pretty interesting, given some of the things we've been having going on globally with respect to health concerns or wildfires, and
Yeah.
what a great signal that is at a population level. And then one of the other things I thought, again, I'm plugging selfishly on features because they were a benefit. The sleep debt score, I thought
Yeah.
that's
It's
a really
helpful.
interesting metric because I can look at it and be like, okay, I'm in debt, and we all know what debt means, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You have to pay back
yeah,
sometime.
gotta pay. You always pay.
Yeah.
So getting into like some of the meat and potatoes here, so to speak. So you've been around since 2009. You've got 82 million downloads. 4 billion nights later, most people still think of what you've got as an app that wakes you up in the morning at the right time.
Yeah.
But, we talked a little bit about what the original team sees, and we're getting into what everybody else misses. And, insofar as you were concerned, when did you realize the data set itself had become an asset? You alluded to it there, but I'd love to tease that out a bit.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think because listen, we started with this movement, and so you put the phone on the mattress. We read your motion through the accelerometer. I mean, it was a simple solution. did a good enough job, I would say, to be useful. And then about 10 years ago, we moved to audio, and we used a microphone to basically listen for movement instead of feeling it. So that's what we did. And it was still, it was more signal and still nothing on your body. So no wearable needed, just, the phone that, most people already had. But then came the real shift. And this is, one that was so obvious for me when I came in, that and talking to the team and their expertise, is that the ones that sort of changed the kind of company we are, that was when we, 2 years ago roughly, went for breathing. So breath became the signal, not movement. Your actual breathing, the rate of the breathing, the regularity, and the read we could do from sound of that signal. So the moment we could start to do and read breathing, that's also, to me, when we stopped tracking sleep only. I mean, we improved our sleep tracking, just to be clear, because breathing, I mean, you probably experienced this yourself, Jeremy. When you lay next to someone that falls asleep, you can hear that in the regularity of their breath. So that's what we have trained our algorithms on. But we started to reading a lot more things. It was more like, I don't know, physiology maybe, in a way. So because breathing is what lets you see, and that's what we are trying to do now. We're in a clinical validation phase for sleep apnea risk detection. It's very linked to breathing, and guess what? That's what we trained our signals for during the last years. So we also realized that breathing is also, you can see a lot of respiratory rate is linked to illness and how that moves through a population. I mean, we already talked about briefly, coughing, for instance, and how that moves through populations. So to me, the fact that we went with no wearable, I think that was something that cost us early, because it's a harder problem to solve, in my opinion, at least. But no wearables means no ceiling. I mean, anyone with a phone can use this. And I think that's what makes this so impactful. And that compounds with what you said. I mean, we have more than 82 million installs right now, and more than 4 billion nights of data tracked. And we have done that more or less organically. So every day, just to put some numbers out there, Jeremy, because I know your audience like numbers, every day we analyze 11 million hours of sleep. 11 million hours. That's like, it's over 1,000 years of human sleep every day. And we process, 300,000 sleep hours an hour. So for years we have done this, and that's what we trained it on. So I think what's clicked to me is, to go back to the question, it's like, when we went to breathing, it also opened up a whole new area of other things like coughing, because once you listen to breathing, you also hear more things around it. And we started to train the algorithm coughing, and we realized, what? We have a live stream of the world's coughing. And the largest market we have around the globe, it's US, but it's also, Germany, UK. We will also find Japan, Brazil, China, Australia. Those are all top 10 markets. So we have a live stream of the world's coughing globally. And I think that is when the features, sort of, because we talked about features, I think that's when it became more infrastructure, maybe, in my head. So I think that's a bit the story of when we realized that, we're sitting on something here that is just so much larger than we do today with the app, which is fantastic in itself, but we're sitting on something so much larger.
Yeah, and that's, I think, an important distinction, right? Is Sleep Cycle's positioning shifted from that world-leading consumer app that, in fact, a lot more people have known about this than I thought. I wonder where the heck I've been, honestly. But as you say, there's the product here is really the platform, in a way, so that we can empower a lot of these emergent companies, in the age of AI, in the age of biomarker accessibility, right? In the age of people, who are optimizers, people who are, outside of, they're interested in clinical, yes, but they're also, there's this emergent wellness, I would almost say even like a lifestyle component. And I guess what I'm referring to here is like, the likes of Ultrahuman. I think they're a partner publicly that we can speak about. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sleep Cycle's positioning shifting from this leading consumer app. So walk me through how, basically the B2B offers work, because I know we have some really curious potential partners listening. And, the SDK, so the cough radar, and basically it's the sleep apnea white label.
Yeah.
And, so if you could walk me through that, maybe in the way that you walk a prospective partner through what that integration looks like. And, you've got that great gold standard, like the ultra human integration. Basically, I think it was like from initial conversation to integration was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can it be that easy
And
to bring this on as a booster to a lot
yeah.
of these wellness companies that are out there?
And I mean, I think it goes back to, what we started the conversation with is that, so for me, like, how can we scale our mission? Like, how can we scale impact? I mean, I'm extremely proud that we have an app with 2.5 million users. I think it's fantastic. We're very lucky to have that. And we deliver a lot of value to those people. If we would double that, that would be amazing. Imagine 5 million people. But to me, what I would be more interested in as well is to allow others people that already have their ecosystem and their users to try to solve a certain need to basically use the same technology that we have used to build the world's largest sleep app to their audience. And the good thing with sleep is that so many things are relying on sleep. I mean, if you want to be a better partner, you should probably, check your sleep. How is your sleep doing? A better parent. If you want to perform better at work, if you're training for that marathon, everything you do is probably start with fixing your sleep. And a lot of scientists say this now. If you have a depression or something, usually you started with medication, and that's how you did it. I mean, more progressive scientists right now and doctors say, let's start fixing your sleep, because that will probably help you a lot with your mental health as well. So it's all interconnected. So to me, I mean, I come from a history where I'm very used to collaborating with others. That's how I'm used to doing business. So I said, like, guys, can't we just separate the technology from the app and put that into an SDK and package it up, and then we read the SDK, the same SDK that anyone else can read. So that's what we have done. So we have basically separated the technology from the app, and now we allow others to use that technology to, in Ultrahuman's case, they use it for their respiratory plug. So, I mean, being a wearable, they can do a lot of great things, but they cannot track, coughing, they cannot track respiratory rate, snoring, etc. And we have others. We have a smart home manufacturer that is doing. I can't share that unfortunately yet, and we're a listed company, Jeremy. Maybe we should say that so people don't understand why we're a bit secretive sometimes. But we're listed on NASDAQ, so that means that we cannot always disclose everything. But I will do my best to give you to make sense of it anyway. But they will use it in a smart home environment to regulate some of the smart home capabilities that they're building out. So they're not even using a phone. They're using other microphones. So it doesn't even have to live in a phone. So the strategy going forward has been, okay, we managed to decouple it last year. In Q4, we started to reach out to some potential clients and said, like, hey, do you guys want to use this? It's great for building your engagement. If you want to increase your engagement in your product, you should probably get sleep right. I mean, in our app, our DAO mouse, so our daily active usage and monthly active usage ratio, it's off the charts. It's over 50%. That's how sticky it is. So if you want to build a habit, well, I would say this is probably a good place to start. And what we're also doing is that, we allow others to use this Sleep SDK. It's super simple, lightweight, contactless. You can drop it in any app or even other hardware. And it works both on iOS and Android. And we have packaged all the things that we have there, even our patented smart alarm, all the real-time sleep staging. We have dual sensing in there, so you can separate 2 people or more in a room. And this is where Ultrahuman comes in. So 2 weeks, it took them to embed this, 4 weeks to launch. And I think that speaks volume about their team as well, to be honest, the fact that they also managed to pull this off and launch it in 4 weeks. But I think that is probably answering a question that every partner is asking, is like, how painful is this going to be? And hopefully this goes to show that, well, not so, to put it bluntly. And then the second thing is obviously the data layer. So we talked a little bit about it. It's called Cough Radar. It's the same microphone. It's privacy safe. And we turn it, the respiratory signal, we are also listening for coughing. And I think right now we're exploring this with UK HSA, so the UK Health Security Agency. They are right now validating our data because this could be huge in terms of understanding in an anonymous way population health and how influenza is spreading across a country. And we cover 80% with our app of the UK population. So it makes a lot of sense for them to do that. But we're in the US, we're also working with Carnegie Mellon, who is also doing a study on this data. So Carnegie Mellon and the Delphi Group are doing this as well. And then the third one we just mentioned, which I think is the bigger one, I think we will go deeper in that, is the sleep apnea. So we are right now in a clinical validation study. We're doing it in the US for sleep apnea risk detection. We have validated it in our own tests according to the gold standard, which is you're fully hooked up in a PSG machine. And then we have trained the algorithm based on that. So what does the phone pick up? What does the PSG machine pick up? And then we've run that over and over again. And my engineer tells me that the signal now, it looks very good, and you don't need a wearable for it. The asset isn't the device; it's the signal that is the device. That is the asset, and the data and the models that we do. So that's the three areas to be progressing. So for a partner today, if you want to plug and play Sleep SDK because you want a smart alarm, or because you want to do sleep staging, or because you want to increase your stickiness, you can use that. If you want the data that we have and it's anonymous, privacy preserved, 100%, then, we can talk about that. And hopefully in September, we will finalize our clinical validation study, and then we will submit for FDA approval for sleep apnea risk detection. And then we will, by that time, be the first in the world to do sleep apnea risk detection just by using an iPhone and no hardwares or anything that you need to attach to your body.
Yeah, so we kind of jumped into like part 3 where I wanted to dive into like specifically, the efficacy of the data and the clinical outcomes that you're moving towards. So most notably the apnea wedge, and just to add some more context layer around that question. So 1 billion people affected,
Yeah.
80% undiagnosed. And it's like, and who knows why it's coming up? I mean, there was a bout of time I remember struggling with that, just at like particularly stressful times as a founder, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, stress was, and this is a major problem. You wake up and you think you're going to die. And who do I talk to, right? And so most people, 80% underdiagnosed, primary care unable to send everyone to a sleep lab. You think about how involved that was, like going through that steps. And then you think about like the existing solutions in order to get to that insight, where in the wearable space anyway, in the consumer space, Apple needs 30 nights, Samsung needs 2. Your term basically runs, Samsung needs 2 months, and your team is basically running about
Samsung needs two nights in a 10-night period, and you need the watch.
Gotcha.
And Apple
the watch,
needs
the wearables, right?
Yeah, they need 10 nights in a 30-day period. But yeah, you're right.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's kind of like when the dietitian tells you, show me your diet over 2 weeks, like record at least 4 days a week so I can get it. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so you've got this in a single night, no wearable, just a microphone, and you've got basically the clinical team running your study. Some of the partners that you've mentioned have said, in their words, they've never seen anything like it. So like what is it specifically that they see? Like they're seeing the fruit, I suppose, of the labor of since 2009.
Yeah.
And what does So talk to me about, like, we talked a little bit about the integrity of that data. Let's maybe go a little deeper and what does the FDA clearance look like for partners who could benefit this and from this and get in early and basically have this as a critical component to their not wearable stack, sorry, their quantified self stack, if you will.
Yeah, if we back up a little bit, if we start with the problem, the problem is the whole point. You said it yourself. So roughly 1 billion people have sleep apnea. 80% of them are undiagnosed. I've read some studies in the US, around 10% of all the US adults has it. And sleep apnea is basically, you said it well, Jeremy. You're basically holding your breath unintentionally while you sleep. You're not breathing. So that's why you have so many diseases linked to it. It makes sense when you think about it, right? If you stop breathing, that's not going to be good for anything. And that's what's happening. And to me, I mean, there is a technology challenge in this for sure. And that is what we are in our internal test feel confident in that we can solve. But at scale, I don't think it is a technology gap. It's an access gap. I mean, the gold standard is that you do this in a sleep lab, and that's very expensive. It's scarce, So, and you can't lab test 1 billion people. So the undiagnosed, they stay undiagnosed basically. So our wedge is basically that we will do screening or risk detection in one night, and you use the phone that you already own. So no extra hardware. And we will read your breathing, and we will look at what comes out from that. And as we talked about, there are some devices out there that can do this, but they need more nights, and you also need to have their hardware. And anything that adds friction, in my experience, is basically a cost. So one night microphone only at a fraction of the cost of a hardware. And to me, it's not a vanity metric that it has to be one night. It's to your point. It's like something that you have to do several nights. It's probably less likely that you will finish it. And for a B2B partner, because we talk about B2B customers, it's also a bit cumbersome. So if you are a CPAP manufacturer, or if you have a drug for sleep apnea that you want to help people to get, or if you have a sleep clinic, anything that requires you to send a hardware to someone to find out that they have the risk of having sleep apnea is probably going to be a barrier. So what we will do, once we get the approval for this from FDA, then we will basically allow partners to integrate these pre-approved FDA screens into their own experience. And then, they will use their digital communication channels that they have today with their customers. Or if they don't have an app, we will gladly create one for them and white label it, and they can put their name on it, and they can change the colors, but the rest will stay the same, because that's how FDA works, because it has to be understandable for the people that takes the test what they're doing. So to me, a one night screen is a one that people finish. And in screening, I think we can agree that completion is probably everything, right? Otherwise, it's not worth that much. So that's what we're doing right now, and I don't want to oversell us, because we are in the process of, together with a US-based clinical research organization, we are validating the claims that we're making, and then once we know that, by the end of September, we will, follow the procedures, and we are doing the documentation. We're doing everything right now that we will have to do before submitting to FDA, and then hopefully we hope that we get an FDA approval in early next year.
So I mean, I think the obviously the clinical significance is profound, because it's really going to shorten that window between getting the diagnosis and then actually connecting people to the treatments, right? The CPAC devices, some form of clinical practitioner counseling, supplements, medication. I know you're in the consumer, maybe on the consumer phase, or the consumer end of the product, it's harder to track, outcomes. But like with some of your preliminary partners, some of your existing partners, can you point to any preliminary outcomes where, this data is, effectively leading to behavioral change because they have it?
I mean, we don't have the product is not launched yet, because we need the approval for it. But the internal tests that we have done, I mean, we obviously compare to the approved devices on market, and we see that the sensitivity and the specificity, so in other words, the ability for us to detect someone who has it and also to detect someone that doesn't have it, are on the same levels as the approved devices on market. Of course, we're talking to a lot of people right now throughout this funnel. There is a lot of people that would love to help people to find out in a more easy way. I mean, the honesty in this is that it's a risk detection tool. It routes people towards a diagnosis. It doesn't replace a diagnostic tool. But what it does in a very simple way is that it tells you if you are detecting the risk of you having it or not having it. And that is what most people need to take the next step. And that's
Yeah.
also where we would, together with partners, will help them to take the next step. If it's a telemedicine provider, then that's probably one step that you could take. It's about identifying risk patients, for instance. But there's also, if you are a CPAP manufacturer, maybe there is something around keeping the engagement and with the machine to do the treatment. And there, it could be helpful if you could once in a while, when you can take a risk detection test, and you will see, well, when I use this machine, maybe it's getting better, and that will keep the motivation up. So I think there's a lot of discussions that we have right now in the funnel that there is a lot of value that these potential partners see.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have clarified. The question that I meant was like the outcomes associated with preclinical states. And I mean, I can share my own, like, because I had this insight, it made me look back. And so, full disclosure, I have an unfair advantage of thinking about my DNA for almost a quarter of a century, right? So I'm a little biased in looking at
Yeah.
that layer. But I do have my other wearable insights as well, like an HRV, my resting heart rate. But, like one of my genetic variants comes back to the COMT gene, and it has to do with basically the rate of clearance of different neurotransmitters that would keep you in a fight or flight state. And so knowing that about myself and then seeing the sleep data, and then also knowing other things, like, for example, sensitivity to caffeine, but actually seeing the quantifiable shift in sleep associated with specific things that are triggering it. So say, for example, screen time before bed, or obvious ones, specific, caffeine after noon, specific food intolerances. So basically, having that, kind of master indicator as sleep, because as you mentioned, this is actually something I remember from my human performance days. And I think maybe that's an interesting area to get into with athletes that we didn't touch on. But I remember trying to optimize all of these things to get, maximum endogenous testosterone and growth hormone for recovery, and just going through this like deep dive of overzealous biohacking. And my coach is like, hey, I know this way to get all those things that you're searching for. Like, it gives you, 10x growth hormone, 000 endogenous testosterone. And this is a time where I was doing my PhD at the same time. So like, that's just a recipe for insomnia as well. And so of course the answer that he gives me is one I don't want to hear, right? It's sleep, right?
Yeah.
And, but it's like, yeah, duh, obviously. But I mean, I will say, as like as a user of the product, seeing it plainly in front of your face like that, and in such an intimate way where you're tracking other family members as well down the hall, like to me, it's like behavioral changes are happening. So I was just wondering if, like, do we have stories like that, or is it too early to say? I mean, clearly the stickiness of the app is evidence that something of value is being transmitted, but
No, but we
anything
do.
we
do, and we have a lot of people that reach out to us and tell us, how we've changed their life with the app. It's heartwarming. We just put out, because we wanted to check the interest in, like, it's great that we can build something, but if people don't want it, like, what's the point? So we just put out, like, I think it was a week or so, we put out a like, hey, we're developing this. Full disclaimer, like, it's not ready yet. It has to go through approval, but once it's approved, would you like the sleep apnea, risk detection tool? Like, sign up here and, give us your email, etc. And, people don't like to give away personal stuff anymore. But, in a week time, we had 150,000 people that, sent it to us and said, like, yeah, please notify me when it's ready, and we even had people contacting the support because they saw this in the app. And then, we pulled it down after a while. And then they were like, hey, I saw something, but I missed it. Like, could you please add me to that list? That's how strong this is for people. And how most people find out, Jeremy, that they have it is usually that they have a partner that is really worried for them. They wake up in the middle of the night and they're like, hey, Jeremy, it sounded like, you're not breathing. You really scared me. You need to check that out. And some people do check it out, but there's also a lot of people that don't have a partner, and then that makes it even less likely for them finding out. So I think there is a lot of reasons for people to get this get this help. And when it comes to the regular product, so the sleep cycle app, yeah, I mean, 25% of our users, they always put in notes what they've done during the day to help them to understand, with the coaching help that we have in the app, of how their behavior impacts their sleep. So I think that's what you were alluded to a little bit,
Mm.
so they tell I've exercised today, or I drank alcohol, or like my overall feeling is this or that, or there is even a free text field. You can write whatever you like, and then they do this, and then they basically link their actions based upon this on what
Mm.
to improve.
Very cool. I touched on personal interest on the human performance
Yeah,
application. Has there been any interest or focus on like high performance, like teams or triathletes, or like, I mean, I've done research previously with like Olympic athletes,
yeah,
and this is the same thing that's always stressed. And an elite performer, they don't just need 8 hours; they need much more. And actually,
yeah,
it's very unique. It's 8 to 12, let's say 7 to
yeah,
12.
yeah.
Is there any interest in working with those kinds of groups, or have you worked with any of those groups
Absolutely.
in
I
the
mean,
past? Yeah.
we had some collaborations with some local teams. So here in Sweden, in the national league, but it's still in
Mm.
Sweden, so we haven't scaled that. But a lot of these big, if it's a football club or an NBA team, etc. Of course, sleep is. I mean, it's as important to monitor as their nutrition and everything else that they're getting monitored around. So happy to talk to any of those. We have actually a lot of people that run what's called triathlon. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Where you,
triathlon. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of our users actually use the app in conjunction with, in preparation for triathlon. So we know that for a fact, because to your point, it's quite important for them to keep track of their sleep leading up to these big performances. So
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, we were happy to talk to
Yeah.
anyone where sleep makes a sense for their audience. It has to be a
Yeah.
case where it makes sense for them to. And the
Yeah.
good thing with sleep is it makes sense for most use cases, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what great timing and what a great opportunity. This was an announcement that I think I just read this morning with Strava. That's like the US based
Yeah.
activity tracker. They've just like made a bunch of upgrades to their developers platform. So there was like the number of developers, like independent developers leveraging Strava, like companies and individual enthusiasts. And it's in the six figures, right?
Wow. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. So being able to pair movement with sleep,
Yeah.
such a low hanging fruit.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's a very straightforward one. I mean, if you want to maximize your run, then you should probably keep track of your sleep, and even more so, should once it's ready, you should probably also check for sleep apnea risk detection, because I don't think that helps your sleep if you're holding your breath. It doesn't help your run. I would assume.
Well, that might be a good mic drop right there. Is if you want to go faster, if you want to
Yeah.
do anything better, sleep better. Is
No,
that a
it's true.
fair point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, so listen, if you want to lose weight, a lot of people are worried about losing weight, and doctors usually say you have to do three things. You need to eat healthier, you need to exercise more, you need to sleep better. But most doctors right now say that you can probably skip the exercise, just eat a little bit healthier and sleep better, and you don't even have to move that much. That will
Mm.
alone help you to reach your goal in losing weight. That's how powerful sleep is. If you think about it, I mean, it's a third of our life where we are totally not useful as human beings when we sleep. I mean, we cannot protect ourselves or our family. I mean, the door is locked, so I mean, luckily we're out of the caves. But still, like
Mm.
biologically, we can't do that. We cannot get food, which is also what we programmed for, and a big part of why we exist is also to reproduce. We can't do that either. So it's like, but still, throughout the years that we have existed as humans, we still need a third of our life being asleep. That's how powerful this is.
Amazing. Erik, I want to express my extreme gratitude for the time today. I think we covered a lot more than I cover in such a short period of time. And I know that your time is valuable. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for joining me today on the
Well,
DNA of Things.
thanks, Jeremy.
Vision Erik just laid out isn't one of science fiction. It's a roadmap. Your bedroom quietly is becoming the most sensor rich place in your home. And the question is no longer whether ambient health monitoring arrives, it's who builds it well and well enough that you actually trust it. Erik is betting the next decade of sleep tech on that trust. Respiratory signals, cough detection, even DNA-informed sleep architecture, audio that listens and learns without watching. The future doesn't arrive on its own. It needs people willing to ask the harder questions of the devices on their nightstand, and the engineers willing to build past what was previously thought to be impossible. Erik has done and is doing both. So the invitation here is to stop accepting smart devices as they are and ask more of them. Start expecting your night to inform your day. And if you're building in this space, we can go faster together. The future Erik describes needs more architects, and we encourage you all to connect with Erik to help bring sleep to life.